Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Adam Interviews, where we are talking with folks in our area doing things of note. As you know, fire response in our area is absolutely huge at the very small municipal level up to the county level. And we're going to talk about all the different levels and the problem that we're seeing throughout that entire ladder, which is a shortage of firefighters, from the volunteer to those that want to be hired. And to help talk about that and so much more, we've got Steve Chitterer. He is the fire coordinator for Monroe County. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
So why don't you, we say fire coordinator before we get going on the issues and all that. What does that actually mean?
So my role within the county government is I help coordinate our special operations team, our training assets, our fire investigation branch, and then also we work on managing resources at some of the bigger events and multi-alarm events. So even if the city of Rochester has a large-scale event, we'll come in and help with some of the resource management. And then also for our partners in the county, we help with kind of those big, oh my gosh, type situations.
Do you have your own crew, or is this more of a coordination management agency?
So our agency is not an operational agency. We are a coordination cell. We work hand in hand with all the authority having jurisdictions in the county. There are 35 current fire organizations within our county. And our role as the county's seat is just to help coordinate those mutual aid responses and make sure that some of those incident commanders are aware of resources. So if they do choose to use them, we can activate them appropriately and help them mitigate their situations.
So when we see here over the scanner, this is a mutual aid response. Is that something then that was coordinated by the Monroe County Fire Bureau?
So we have a somewhat hand in that, but usually the two authority having jurisdictions work hand in hand and then just kind of give us the, for your situational awareness, hey, we've created this arrangement.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay, yeah. So usually like once it gets to the real big incident, so our third, fourth alarms, and we're moving 10, 12, 13, 14 pieces of apparatus, that's where we kind of come in as a coordination cell. But at the single alarm or even a second alarm, we have some of our coordinators on scene. Most of the time, thankfully, it's just there as a support role to support those authorities having jurisdiction incident commanders to make sure that they have the resources needed for the mitigating of their scenes.
Why don't we step back, and you're going to be amazed at my ignorance in this area, but when we talk about how we respond to a fire today versus 10 to 20 years ago, is there a difference? Have we gotten better at this?
So better is a very subjective word.
Mm-hmm.
Fires today versus fires 10, 15, 20 years ago, as you referenced, are very, very different for a multitude of reasons. One, how we build our structures. We like it to be a little bit cheaper and go up faster. So building techniques have evolved to support the customer, not necessarily the first responders. Our furnishings that we place inside the home, also, we want them cheaper, we want them faster, and we want them more visually appealing. Some of those compounds that make up that stuff are very volatile when they start being superheated, so fires burn faster. The adage is that fire doubles in size every minute. And right now we're looking at like that 90 to 100 seconds where they're saying a room can go from an incipient stage fire to flashover depending on the volume of furniture and furnishings in the room versus 20 to 25 years ago, they were talking like 10, 12, 15 minutes. So obviously the fire progression has dramatically changed in the last couple of decades.
Now, when you deal with older homes, do you run into like a different problem because they weren't built for necessarily fire suppression before crews got there?
So yeah, some of our older like villages and some of the older farmsteads definitely do present some unique challenges. Balloon frame construction and like our farming communities. That's something that a lot of our newer firefighters are something they're not familiar with unless they grew up in that type of community. So understanding that building architecture and how that building is constructed, and then understanding more importantly how that fire develops through that structure is something we now have to teach a lot more because there isn't that firsthand knowledge. Then also in our older villages and those types of communities, that whole older plaster and lath and stuff like that, it holds the heat and it's not like sheetrock. So it's a little bit different where it can compartmentalize a little bit better. But the furnishings are the same, whether it's a new construction or old construction. Most of the time, our younger consumers that are moving in and building and occupying our homes in our communities are these younger folks with these wanted newer types and styles of furnishings. And those are those ones that really take off.
Wow. So give me an example. So, because I'm thinking there are some things that I might want to buy for my house. What could I try to avoid to make my home a little safer?
So the biggest thing is always make sure you have working smoke detectors.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Every fire prevention week in October, we talk about it and then we forget about it and then we remember it again. But change the clock, change the batteries. We just had daylight savings time last weekend. Everybody should have checked their smoke detectors, make sure that was working. Then one is hear the beep where you sleep. It's one of those NFPA fire prevention kind of mottos, but everywhere where you put your head down to sleep, you should be able to hear that smoke detector because that device is supposed to be able to wake you up in the event that something's happening overnight. Having a small fire extinguisher in your kitchen is a great idea. Having a small fire extinguisher in your garage, also a great idea. Again, but if there's any time where there's a fire where you don't feel comfortable, the first thing you need to do is get out.
Yeah.
Get your loved ones out and never go back in. That's one of the hardest things to do is to not abandon, but make that decision of self-preservation. Sometimes it's a very difficult decision, but for the responders coming in, you're either going to become part of the solution by giving those first responders information, or you're going to become part of the problem because you went back in and now those first responders have to go get you and whoever else or whatever else may have been still in the structure.
Mm-hmm. Carbon monoxide. It seems like I'm just saying it, maybe once every 2 years we have a terrible story to tell. Is that still does that issue go away? Has it gotten any better? Does that still remain a pretty big threat out there?
So it's actually a very big threat. The more efficient our furnaces and stuff get, the better it is for our pocketbook. But unfortunately, when they go awry, the faster they create a problem because of how complete their combustion is. Sometimes if we have those block pipes and stuff like that with a leak, you're going to see those rates rise higher. Now, with that, also many of them have a ton more safety mechanisms built in. So that's where you're going to see some flow failures and stuff like that, where it shouldn't produce that, but it's still definitely a threat out there, and you should always have a working CO detector as well.
And does that have to be as prevalent in the home as a smoke detector?
So the goal with a CO detector is one per floor, or a one per floor with any source of ignition.
Okay.
So if your home, like some of our Fairport residents, right, everything in their home is electric only. If you have no sources of carbon monoxide, then you probably don't need to worry about a carbon monoxide problem as much as someone who lives in a
That's
rural
so interesting.
area.
I never thought about that with Fairport.
Yeah, so so that's the thing, right? So some of our villages that have that cheaper electric draw, they've converted their homes to 100% electric utilities, which is great for them. And it's sometimes a little bit safer for them. They don't have to worry about those sources of combustion. Now, so you go out to the rural area where they're heating everything off fuel oil and stuff like that. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure you have those CO detectors near any sources of ignition.
Yeah. They always say to have that master plan. Do you still, is that, I mean, I say that from like middle school days. Is that still?
Edith. Yeah, exit drills in the home, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's definitely still part of our initial fire prevention training. Many of our area community risk reduction agents still get out there to the elementary schools and grade schools and get involved and teaching those folks to get out there and make sure you have that central meeting place. That's kind of what we're talking about, where we want to get out. And it doesn't matter which way we get out, but as long as everybody can meet together and we can count noses, then we know our family is hopefully out safe.
Yeah, I like that. We've been discussing, my colleague Isabel Garcia on Sunday did a story, I think someone was in town, if I'm not mistaken, to talk about the firefighter shortage. I mean, how big of a problem is this right now?
So unfortunately, it's very big, very specific to the volunteer side of the world right now. So just some quick numbers. If we're looking, we go back to kind of like the first time we did some good data analysis was in 1984. In 1984, we had 2,431 registered volunteer firefighters here in Monroe County. In 2025, we're down to 1,216. So for the quick mathematicians, that's a 50% reduction.
Wow. That's scary.
It's a lot.
I mean, are we at a point where that leads to a reduction in response time or a potential, not even just a less effective response?
So every authority having jurisdiction is going to have to address that differently, right?
Yeah.
So just because it's a county-wide shortage doesn't mean that every department lost 50%.
That's true.
So that's where every area needs to do their own self-assessment. Every fire chief is doing what they can do, and their board of directors and fire commissioners are doing what they can do to help recruit, retain quality individuals. What does that mean on response side? It means that people have to start getting creative. Where the scramble model, where everyone used to wear the beepers and it would go off and then everybody would scramble and assemble. Well, when you have half of the manpower or half the staffing power that you used to have, unfortunately, that does have some effect. So folks have moved over to a staffing model with having duty shifts where folks are actually stationed at their structure. Some agencies are able to motivate people to do that just out of the goodness of their heart and some civic duty. Other places have had to go to a combination model where they have some career firefighters and volunteers. And some organizations have fully transitioned to fully career staff models. So all different models and flavors on that a la carte menu. You just have to figure out what works best for your community.
Obviously, one of the main goals would be to get more bodies through the door. What's changed? What's led to the reduction in staffing in the volunteer world?
So there's a lot. So some standardization has come out. So we have new standards with our training. Where our old firefighter 1 class used to be, a couple nights a week for like a month. We're now up to, for a full firefighter to have basic exterior fire ground operations, interior fire ground operations. You're at roughly 106 hours.
Wow.
Of didactic training and some
Wow.
and psychomotor. So it adds up. So like our basic firefighter, so if you did BFO, the IFO, firefighter 2, and self-rescue, that's kind of our core competencies to make you a safe interior firefighter. You're at 183 hours.
Wow. That's a lot of time to invest.
And that's just really the tip of the iceberg. That's getting you safe in the backseat of a fire truck to then have a driver who would then have to have about 100 hours of training because they need to do evac, pump ops, stuff like that. And then you need to have an officer. And that officer has to do all of that interior firefighter training that you had done. And then starting with fire officer 1 is an additional 63 hours. Officer 2 is another 40 hours, and so on and so forth. So as you climb that ladder, those requirements those classes become more pertinent for your rank and role.
Yeah. And when I was growing up in the 90s, I knew a lot of classmates who went through high school programs at the ambulance service and the fire department. Do those still exist for kids?
So there's multiple different variations of it. There's the traditional Explorer Post.
Yeah, that's the word. I forgot about that.
So the Explorer Post is through Scouting USA. There are still some ambulance corps and fire organizations that are running those. Another is the Restricted Active Member, or RAMS program, kind of like a junior firefighter program. And then we do have in our community through the Greece Central Schools, there's one currently, there's some others that are trying to figure out their legs underneath them, but a Responding to Emergencies program. It's kind of an offshoot of a BOCES style program where they're still during the school didactic day, but they're learning and getting their basic exterior fireground operations, and some of the students are achieving their EMT certification.
Wow, it seems smart. But a lot of that probably was to gear kids up to go to a paid position, if I'm not mistaken.
So even if they went paid, the BFO doesn't really make a difference.
Okay.
So on the career side, on the civil service side, you sit for a civil service exam, and it's just a generic knowledge civil service exam. You're then scored, and then depending on the authority having jurisdiction hiring processes, some agencies choose to hire off of a district list, some hire off the county list. So it just kind of depends on which flavor they're looking for that time. And that civil service score then ranks you. Obviously, there's veterans points. There's a myriad of other civil service points that can be added to for your scores. And then it goes through the civil service process for hiring on that one. So having some additional stuff certification-wise, it doesn't necessarily officially help you. But obviously, everything with every industry is a lot of times is how you can interview and how your long-term interview is. So when you start going to these classes and you meet some of the instructors that happen to be officers at certain agencies, you're kind of starting that introduction phase and starting to kind of get to know each other. So it's not an interview, but it's an interview.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then when it comes to volunteering, why don't you talk to me about the benefits? And let's start off with the first one that I'll just say, which is you help your community. So you've got the personal reward that can come with that. And we want to talk about the actual technical benefits. But before we do that, Steve, if you could talk about the communal benefits. I mean, what is it like to be in a firehouse and be part of that crew?
So whether you're a career or volunteer, I've been lucky enough through my life. I've done both. I've been a volunteer for about 25 years now, and I've been a career in the career industry for just over 20 now. So the industry itself is amazing. I love being a firefighter. I love doing this job. I love helping my neighbors. And to kind of dovetail into your exact question, that's exactly it. You get to be one of your community members who gets called upon when your other community members are having their worst day of their life. You get to help them out, be a part of your community, be an active role in helping keep your community a safer place for everyone to be at. So it's a really, like, deep down, it's a fun thing to be there. Some esprit de corps for your town, esprit de corps for your neighborhood. So it's a lot of fun.
And I've got to thank the friend, probably the camaraderie. I mean, you look, one of the things, Steve, and I know you watch my show every night, but one of the things that I hit on is, a loss of community agencies or community gathering points, whether it's someone's place of worship or the Rotary. I mean, they're still there, but people just aren't engaging in them the way they used to. And often that can, lead to, if you look at it politically, hyper partisanship, people thinking the other side is evil and whatnot. And we just need to get together more. That's been a huge message of mine. And I've got to think that when you're at a fire department, you're mixing with people with all walks of life, and they become your friends and people that you are going to have to perhaps lean on in a very dangerous moment.
So that couldn't be more true. You have the entire cross-section of your community represented in your local agencies. And that doesn't matter if it's a volunteer agency or the career agencies. They're all equally diverse. There's men, women, different colors, different races, different creeds, all there to do the same thing. And I would argue that's one of the great things about the fire service industry is partisan stuff almost never comes into it, because we're all there for the common good of helping people. That's one thing that universally so far we as Americans can agree that it's a great thing, is to help each other.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice thing. But that, like you said, that cross section is there. There's, depending on which organization I can reference, I've got folks that are in their late 60s, early 70s, all the way down to seniors in high school.
Yeah.
And we're all in part of that mixing bowl for that community and out there doing the best we can. And obviously also with those different levels of certification, different training, you've got different roles. So you've got a whole mixed bag of who is what and how is what.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so we kind of talked about the personal potential communal benefit there. Now let's talk about when you volunteer, do you get other types of benefits, whether it's some type of healthcare benefit or anything that can make that sacrifice, if you will, a little easier?
So again, it falls back to the authority having jurisdiction.
Right.
So each organization chooses to address their fringe benefits a little bit differently. I've heard of some places that do offer some health insurance and some death benefits, even off duty. Then there's other agencies that aren't in a fiscally positioned, to be able to offer that to all of their members. Through the state, there is volunteer firefighters benefit law. So if you are injured in the line of duty, there is some compensation. It is not equal to workman's comp. So that's unfortunately one of the big issues currently that you may have seen in some of the other news articles as part of FASD's 14 points. They want to look at that. Some other issues, some municipalities also allow a tax credit, whether it's a percentage, a dollar amount, or something like that off of some of your property taxes. There's also some first responder discounts through third-party apps and stuff like that. And larger retail outlets will sometimes also do a first responder type discount. Yeah, no.
You already kind of got into my next question there. If you could, I always say, grab a magic wand. What are 3 or 4 changes that you would make that you think would help the situation and draw more people into volunteering?
Oh, wow. A magic wand. This has got a lot of edges to this one.
Okay.
So one would have to be a magic wand, and that would be somehow getting back to September 12th, 2001. And I mean that in the sense of every single person you saw that day wasn't left, wasn't right. Everyone was American, and everyone was worried about their homeland and their neighbors. We lost that a little bit, and we haven't forgotten, but we've lost that edge. And I think if you bring that edge back, that puts people back in the seat of looking to the left and to the right when they're at home, not necessarily at a screen or their computer or their Xbox or whatever, but looks left, looks right. How can I help my community?
Mm-hmm. So kind of a foundational change.
Yes. Yeah. More of a, not spirit, but more of a small town cultural type.
Yes.
I think that would be your biggest one. I think some of the tax incentives are great. Length of service award programs are great, similar to our retirement is what that is for the volunteer firefighters. There are some agencies out there that are advocating for changing the state law and the pay per call and that kind of stuff. I think that remains to be seen. I don't know exactly the effect, positive or negative, that may have or may not have. And again, you're dealing with a very diverse culture within the fire service. A plan that works in Hamlin, Walk, and Wharton might not work in Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah.
Our county here locally is a very diverse county. We're all over the place. So certain models may work at certain places, and certain models will not work at other places.
Yeah. No, there's, like you said, there's 14 points. So if people want to learn more about what's being recommended? Where can they go?
So FASNY, the Firemen's Association of the State of New York, that's a lobbying group that represents the volunteer fire service in our state. They have a website. That's just fasny.org, I believe. They have their 14 points on there and some other literature on there. Other than that, also looking at just some of the other stuff, the possible changes to the OSHA 1910 standard, which is the fire brigade standard. There's some changes in that. So that might drive some other changes within our industry as well.
So at this point, I kind of want to move more into your experience, because sometimes that can help people understand this whole decision a little bit better. How did you get started in the fire service?
So I grew up in Mendon. I lived about 3/4 of a mile from the firehouse, and I was always just interested in what was going on down the road. Originally when I was in high school, I was looking at doing pre-med, and I actually wanted to be an anesthesiologist. School wasn't my thing, so I was like, well, this other fireman thing seems pretty cool. I get to ride around in fire trucks, go to fires, and still get to help people.
Right.
So that was a blast. And then I joined the national. I went to college for a completely unrelated degree. Didn't finish. Enlisted. Ended up overseas. And when I came back from my first deployment, I was lucky enough to land an EMT job with a fire district up in Greece. And when I kind of got immersed in that culture in that fire district, it was very attractive and I liked it. I took the exam and I was lucky enough to get hired, and here we are.
Yeah. Where'd you get deployed?
So I was in Iraq in 04-05, and then I was in Afghanistan 12-13 and 2019 again.
Wow. That's a lot.
It was fun.
What did you do there?
So I'm a flight medic. I'm still in. I serve for the New York Army National Guard here out of Rochester.
Wow. So do you fly or do you?
I'm a flight medic.
Okay. So you're on with a helicopter?
Yep. UH-60 Blackhawks.
Wow.
So my first deployment, I was a ground medic, and then deployments 2 and 3, I was a flight medic.
Wow. Do you still do that?
Yep.
So, I mean, I know you said you're still with the National, but they still call you upon you to do that type of work, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, even like tonight, I've got to go in for a training flight.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It's fun.
Name a call. I mean, obviously, why don't we start around here? Just, when you talk about fire service and whatnot, what's a call that's memorable to you? One of the first that comes to mind.
Oof. None of them are happy.
Yeah, but I know. But I mean, that's the stuff that sticks with us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I respond due to being a small town America. I had to respond to a family friend's house who is well known in our area for taking in foster kids, and they were very proactive in that community. And for years, they just I couldn't tell you how many foster children they ended up helping out. But unfortunately, I believe it was like the week before Christmas, one of the children was chronically ill, was I want to say like 12 to 13 months-ish of age, unfortunately. And unfortunately, their illness, they succumbed to, but it was in the home. So we responded and had to do CPR. And it was just one of those things that, it's Christmas time and you're doing CPR on a kid.
Yeah.
So,
But if you're not there, who else is?
That's it.
That's it. You're the backstop. And I guess that's another part of the fire service that people don't. They might think it has to do with trucks and water and hoses and all that, but a lot of them are trained as basic medics, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So many of our fire service communities are BLSFR, so Basic Life Support First Response. So they're EMT basics. There's one agency in the county that's Barnard. They're a ALSFR, so Advanced Life Support First Response. So they have paramedics. But the majority of the other 34 are all BLSFR, and they are CPR, AED qualified, hemorrhage control, splinting, C-spine, backboard, oxygen, check and inject epi, Narcan, all those fun things.
Yeah. Has technology improved over time? I mean, we talked about how, whether it's easier to fight fires these days, and we talked about the difference in construction that might make it a little harder, and furniture and all that. Has the technology improved over the last 10 to 20 years?
So definitely with like our personal protective envelope or personal protective equipment and SCBAs has dramatically changed. The air packs, unfortunately, as we keep adding more technology, this weight difference is kind of coming back to the old steel bottles. But we used to have steel bottles with minimal frames, and now they were 25 to 30 pounds a piece.
Yeah.
And now today we have carbon fiber bottles with a frame that weighs almost as much because we put so much technology back into it.
That's interesting.
But that technology is good. It helps us locate down firefighters. It helps us locate each other in the smoke. It helps us track our air consumption better. So there's a double edge to everything, and some give and some take.
I find like I have to ask this almost in every interview now because it's just become a thing, but is AI helping the industry at all? And if, where does it go? How could it potentially help moving forward?
So the AI potential in our industry, obviously, there's a huge part of it with like dispatching, with training management, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We can obviously use AI to develop scenarios and all that fun stuff. Thankfully, unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, if you're a technological guy or if you're a knuckle dragger like me, they're never going to make an AI bot that goes in and fights the fire.
Yeah. God, you get to my next question. Why'd you do that? Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, you do. You see those, especially with police departments picking up those like dog-like
they're out there.
bots.
So the city of Los Angeles has a mini tank, basically. It can drive, but it's mostly designed for like those big warehouse, big commercial, industrial, where the risk just really isn't worth putting humans in there. Now, if you reverse that and look at like your typical residential fire, maybe the technology will catch up where it's agile enough to go in, make a 90-degree turn, pull the hose, go up the stairs, grab little Sally or grandma and get them out. Maybe. Today it's not there. Today that takes a human being to make that decision, read that situation, and then make that conscious effort to go save that life. Yeah.
I wonder if in the future they're like a Google map almost, whether they're going to be able to create a diagram of a home and you can pinpoint a fire's location faster. But
anything's possible. The other part of it is how far is the American populace going to let someone into their home to map it?
Oh, it's true. Yeah, good point. For folks who do want to volunteer, they're inspired by this, where can they go to get more information?
So the easiest thing to do is just a quick Google search of your hometown and fire department. 9 times out of 10, that's going to pop up with the authority having jurisdiction for where you live. If you have further questions or it doesn't give you the answer, call your town hall. Your town hall will be able to direct you to your fire department where you live. And then they should be able to get you in contact with their fire chief or their recruiting retention officer or whoever the case may be and how they do their intake.
Will you often need your own form of transportation in order to volunteer?
So many places, especially those that are still subscribing to the scramble model, yes.
Yeah.
Public transportation can get you to and from many of the fire stations, but probably not in a timely or efficient manner in the event of an emergent response.
Yeah, unless maybe you do some type of scheduling or something like that.
Yep. There's a bunch of agencies that have kind of switched over to that in-house duty crew, they call it. So that is a potential where you could do that public transportation to get to your firehouse station, and then you could do your duty hours and then public transport home.
Steve, I thank you so much. This has been very informative, and I'm glad we touched upon the, what'd you say? I always forget the expression, turn your clocks, where you have to check the fire.
Change your clock, change batteries.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. So good reminder there.
Yep.
So thank you for the time. We're going to have you back, I'm sure, as we keep trying to fill the ranks here for our local fire departments. All right. Steve Chitterer, the fire coordinator here in Monroe County. We want to thank him again for coming in and chatting with us. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this. And feel free to tell your family and friends about the opportunities that are out there at the local fire halls. Great community and great potential to help one in need, your neighbor in need. Also, tell your friends and family about the Rochester First app as we continue to stock it with really interesting and great stuff. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.